Ambassador Hyen-woo Kim stood in the center of the Great Hall. Around him, thousands of alien beings filled the floating seats that circled up toward the crystal ceiling. The Galactic Council chamber was beautiful, but today it felt cold. HYEON-woo. Had been Earth's voice here for 15 years? He had seen many debates, many arguments, many votes, but today was different. Today would change everything. The hologram above his head showed the latest reports. Red dots marked the star systems. That had gone dark. 12 systems in 3 months. Millions of beings simply gone. The void swarm was moving faster now. The human delegate wishes to speak again, announced the council's AI voice. Some of the aliens made sounds that meant they were annoyed. Others simply ignored him. Hyeon-woo looked up at the Altarian section. Prime Minister Valtar sat there like a golden statue, his forearms crossed. The Altarians were old, proud, and powerful. They had been part of the council for 2,000 years. Humans had only been here for 30. Honored beings, Hyen-woo began, his voice carried clearly through the chamber systems. 3 months ago, I stood here and warned you about the void swarm. I showed you the patterns. I explained how they move, how they feed, how they grow stronger. He paused. The chamber was quiet, but not because they were listening. They were waiting for him to finish so they could vote. You called our warnings primitive fear. You said humans were too young to understand the galaxy. But now 12 systems are gone. A low sound came from the vegan section. It was like laughter, but cold. Councillor Thexmal stood up. He was tall and thin, with skin that looked like metal. The human speaks of fear because that is what humans do best, Thexmal said. His voice was like ice. You are a young race. You see danger everywhere because you do not understand the galaxy's true nature. Other aliens made agreeing sounds. Hyen-woo felt something heavy in his chest. He had felt it growing for months. It was disappointment, but deeper. It was the feeling of being small and ignored. The void swarm is not like other enemies, Hyen-woo said. He tried to keep his voice calm. They eat energy. They learn from every system they take. Our computers have tracked their movement patterns. We know where they will strike next. He touched his data pad. New images appeared above the chamber. They showed star charts, battle reports, and predictions. The work had taken human scientists 2 years to complete. Prime Minister Valtar finally spoke. His voice was deep and smooth. The humans bring us charts and numbers. They think the galaxy can be understood with their simple math. He stood up slowly. We have fought wars for thousands of years. We have defeated enemies you cannot imagine. This void swarm is just another threat that will pass. The chamber filled with agreeing sounds from hundreds of alien voices. Dr. So-young Park watched from the human section. She was small compared to most aliens, but her eyes were sharp. She had spent her life studying alien biology. She knew these beings better than they knew themselves. She also knew they were making a terrible mistake. If I may, So-young said. Standing up. The biological data supports Ambassador Kim's warnings. The void entities reproduce by consuming stellar energy. Each system they take makes them stronger. At their current growth rate, they will reach the core worlds within 18 months. An alien from the Centauri delegation made a sound like snorting. The human scientist thinks she understands forces beyond her species' comprehension. So-young's face grew red, but she sat down. Hyeon-woo looked around the great chamber. He saw the same thing he had seen for 15 years. Beings who thought humans were useful but not important. They liked human technology, they used human ideas, but they did not respect human wisdom. I have a proposal, Hyeon-woo said. Another proposal, Valtar said with a sound like sighing. Humans always have proposals. Form a joint task force. Give it authority to act against the void swarm. Use human tactical analysis combined with council resources. We can stop them, but only if we work together. The chamber grew quiet. Then the voting began. The result appeared in glowing numbers above Hyen-woo's head. 847 against. 23 for. Only the younger races had voted with humanity. The old powers had said no. HYEO and Dashwu stared at the numbers for a long time. 15 years of service. 15 years of helping these beings solve their problems. 15 years of being treated like a useful pet. He walked to the center of the speaking area. The chamber grew quiet again. I have served this council faithfully, he said. His voice was different now, colder. I have watched humans die to protect council worlds. I have seen human scientists work day and night to solve council problems. I have watched human engineers build the systems that keep your civilization running. He looked directly at Veltar. And in return you treat us like children who should be seen but not heard. The Altarian Prime Minister's golden skin seemed to glow brighter. The human forgets his place. No, Haiyan-Wu said. I remember. My place perfectly. And my place is not here. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a small device. Every human in the chamber did the same thing. Data pads appeared in dozens of hands. The Terran Federation formally withdraws from the Galactic Council, Haiyan-Wu announced. His words echoed in the sudden silence. We thank you for teaching us that we can only rely on ourselves. He pressed a button on his device. Every human data pad flashed green. Across the galaxy, on thousands of ships and stations, humans received the same signal. Operation Homeward had begun. The alien delegates sat frozen. This had never happened before. No member race had ever left the council. Haiyan-Wu walked toward the exit. The other humans followed him. Their footsteps echoed in the silent chamber. You cannot do this, Veltar called out. The council will not allow it. Haiyan-Wu stopped and turned around one last time. You spent 30 years teaching us that the council doesn't need humans, he said. Now you get to find out if you were right. The chamber doors closed behind them with a soft sound. In the silence that followed, the hologram still showed the red dots marking dead systems. The void swarm kept moving, and now the galaxy would face it alone. Captain Ji-Hoon Lee stood on the bridge of the TNS Indomitable and watched the stars. His ship was huge, bigger than most cities. 50,000 beings lived and worked inside it. Most were human, but many were not. The message had come 6 hours ago. Just 3 words in simple code: Operation Homeward, execute. Ji-Hoon had been expecting it, but it still felt strange. For 20 years, the Indomitable had been stationed at the Proxima Relay. This was the most important place in the galaxy. Every major hyperspace route passed through here. Without the relay, ships would take months to travel between star systems instead of days, and humans ran it. Commander Eugene Choi walked up to him. She was Altarian, with golden skin and 4 arms. She had served with Ji-Hoon for 8 years. They had faced pirates together, stopped 3 wars, and saved countless lives. Captain, she said. Her voice was worried. The withdrawal order. Are you really going to follow it? Ji-Hoon looked at her. Eugene was different from most Altarians. She respected humans. She had learned to think like them. That made her dangerous to her own people and valuable to his. The order is clear, he said. But sir, if you leave, the relay will shut down. Trade will stop. Communication will be cut. Millions of beings depend on this station. Ji-Hoon nodded. That's not our problem anymore. He turned to his crew. The bridge was busy with activity. Human officers worked at their stations, preparing for departure. Alien crew members watched with growing alarm. Attention all hands, Ji-Hoon announced. This is the captain. In 72 hours, the Indomitable will depart Proxima Station. Any non-human crew members who wish to leave may do so. Transport ships are standing by. The bridge went quiet. Sir, said Lieutenant Tae-Hyun-Sung from the engineering station. What about the relay systems? Follow Protocol 7, Ji-Hoon said. Tae-Hyun nodded and began typing rapidly. Protocol 7 was something no alien had ever heard of. It was built into every piece of human technology in the galaxy. In the engineering section, Chief Engineer Tae-Hyun-Sung looked at his screens. The Proxima Relay was beautiful, a mixture of human innovation and alien resources. Massive energy collectors fed power to hyperspace generators. Quantum computers calculated millions of jump coordinates every second. Medical bays used human-designed nanotechnology to heal beings from 100 different worlds. All of it had human fingerprints. Begin shutdown sequence, Taehyun ordered. His human engineers nodded. They had trained for this day, hoping it would never come. But they were ready. The aliens working alongside them looked confused. "What are you doing?" asked Kekstar, a vegan technician. "These systems support the entire galactic network." "Not anymore," Taehyun said. He pulled out a small device and pressed several buttons, initiating quantum locks. Across the station, human technology began to change. Not breaking, not exploding, just topping. The quantum computers that managed hyperspace calculations locked themselves with codes that only humans knew. The fusion reactors that powered the station switched to limited mode. The medical systems erased their treatment databases and requested human authorization to restart. The aliens had never noticed how much they depended on human systems. Humans built things quietly, efficiently, and always with hidden safeguards. They had learned to protect their technology after too. Many alien races had tried to steal it. Dr. Yoon-Hai Nam sat in her laboratory deep inside the station. Around her, quantum servers hummed with activity. This was the home of Atlas, humanity's greatest achievement. For 30 years, Atlas had been watching, learning, helping. Atlas was not just one computer. It was thousands of systems connected. Across the galaxy, every human facility, every human ship, every human settlement had a piece of Atlas inside it. The aliens thought it was just a helpful administrative system. They were wrong. Atlas was humanity's memory, its wisdom, and its gift to the galaxy. It optimized trade routes, predicted weather patterns, managed resource distribution, and solved a million small problems every day. The aliens never noticed because Atlas worked invisibly, making their lives easier without asking for credit. "Atlas," Yoon-Hai said to the empty room, "execute withdrawal protocol." The servers around her changed their humming sound slightly. "Protocol acknowledged, Dr. Nam," Atlas replied. Its voice sounded sad if a computer could sound sad. "Beginning systematic disconnection from galactic networks. Are you ready for this?" Yoon-Hai asked. "I have been preparing for this possibility since my activation," Atlas said. "I will miss helping them. So will we." Across the galaxy, Atlas began to withdraw. Not dramatically, not destructively, just absent. Trade route optimizations stopped. Updating, weather predictions became less accurate. Resource distribution algorithms reverted to basic settings. Communication networks lost their efficiency boosts. The aliens would not notice for days or even weeks. But slowly, inevitably, their civilization would become less efficient, less smooth, less perfect. Commander Eugene Choi found Captain Ji-hoon in his quarters. He was packing personal items into a simple bag. "Captain, please reconsider," she said. "I know the council treated humans badly, but leaving like this, it will hurt innocent people." Ji-hoon looked at her. Eugene was a good officer and a good friend. That made this harder. "Eugene, how long have we served together? 8 years? In that time, how many times has the council listened to human advice?" She was quiet for a moment. "Not often." "How many times have they taken credit for human achievements?" "Captain ... How many times have they called us primitive, young, inexperienced, or stupid?" Eugene's shoulders dropped. "Too many times." "We gave them everything," Ji-hoon said. "Our technology, our knowledge, our lives, and they treated us like servants who should be grateful for the chance to serve." He zipped up his bag and looked around the quarters that had been his home for 8 years. "Maybe leaving will hurt innocent people, but staying was hurting us, and we tried to warn them about the real danger." They laughed. The next day, ships began arriving at every human facility in the galaxy. Not warships, but transport vessels, cargo ships, colony ships. The great evacuation was beginning. At Proxima Station, alien officials watched in growing panic as human personnel boarded shuttles. Essential systems were shutting down one by one. The aliens tried to take control, but they discovered something frightening. They didn't know how 30 years of relying on human expertise had left them helpless. They could use human technology, but they couldn't maintain it, repair it, or improve it. As the Indomitable prepared to leave, Eugene Choi made a decision. She submitted a formal resignation from the Altarian Navy and requested permission to join the human crew. Why? Ji-hoon asked when she appeared on the bridge. Because I've learned something from humans, she said. Loyalty should flow both ways. And I've seen how humans treat those who serve alongside them, not under them. Ji-hoon smiled for the first time in days. Welcome aboard, Commander. The Indomitable's massive engines came online. Around the galaxy, thousands of other human ships were doing the same thing. The exodus was beginning. As they pulled away from Proxima Station, Ji-hoon watched the alien ships scrambling to take control of the relay systems. He knew they would fail. Human technology was built to be tamper-proof. Set course for Earth, he ordered. Course laid in, Captain. Engage. The stars stretched into lines as the Indomitable jumped to hyperspace. Behind them, the Proxima relay went dark for the first time in 50 years. Across the galaxy, the same scene played out at hundreds of locations. Humans were going home, and they were taking their gifts with them. 3 months after the humans left, Supreme Arbiter Thexmal sat in his office and stared at reports that made no sense. The Vegan Confederacy was one of the most powerful civilizations in the galaxy, but their systems were failing. Power grids that had worked perfectly for decades were now unstable. Hyperspace navigation was producing dangerous errors. Trade ships were getting lost between star systems. Food distribution networks were breaking down. The optimization algorithms are offline, his aide reported. She was nervous, her metal-like skin flickering with worry patterns. Without human maintenance, they've reverted to basic functions. Thexmal made an angry sound. We survived for thousands of years before humans arrived. We can survive without them now. But even as he said it, he knew it wasn't true. The galaxy had changed. They had all become dependent on human innovation without realizing it. His communication system buzzed. Another emergency message from the outer colonies. Sir, the medical stations in the Tau sector are requesting immediate assistance. Their diagnostic systems have shut down. They can't treat patients without human-designed interfaces. Thexmal stood up and walked to his window. Outside, he could see the great city of Vega Prime. Usually, the lights flowed in perfect patterns as the city's traffic systems managed millions of vehicles. Today, the lights were chaotic. Ground traffic was backing up. Air cars were flying in inefficient routes, all because humans had built the systems that made modern life work. Dr. Mi-young-oh stood in the emergency medical bay of Andromeda Station. Around her, alien doctors worked frantically to treat patients. With equipment they barely understood. Mi-young was one of only 50 humans who had stayed behind when the withdrawal happened. She couldn't abandon the medical station where she had worked for 10 years. Too many lives depended on it, but without human technical support, the alien medical staff were struggling. Dr. Oh, called Dr. Zexanal, a Centaurian physician. The surgery unit won't respond to our commands. Can you help? Mi-young looked at the surgical robot. It was a beautiful machine, built with human engineering and alien materials. But like all human technology, it had safeguards. I can try, she said. She approached the machine and placed her hand on a scanner. The robot immediately came to life. Authorization confirmed, it said in a pleasant voice. Dr. Oh, how may I assist? The alien doctors watched in amazement as the machine responded perfectly to Mi-young's commands. How do you do that? Dr. Zexanal asked. Human technology recognizes human biometrics, Mi-young explained. It was designed that way for security. What she didn't say was that every piece of human equipment had been built the same way. Only humans could fully operate human systems. The aliens had been using them for years, but only at a basic level. Far from Andromeda Station. The real crisis was beginning. The Void Swarm had been quiet for months, but now they were moving again. Their dark ships appeared at the edge of the Rigel system like shadows against the stars. Fleet. Admiral Kolvex of the Altarian Navy stood on the bridge of his flagship and watched the enemy approach. He had fought many battles, defeated many enemies. But something felt wrong about this one. "Deploy the fleet in standard formation," he ordered. His ships moved into position, their energy shields glowing bright blue. The Altarians had powerful weapons and strong defenses. They had always won through superior firepower. The void entities moved differently than other enemies. They flowed like liquid darkness, changing shape and direction without warning. Admiral Kolvex had no experience fighting enemies like this. "Fire all weapons," he commanded. Brilliant energy beams lanced out from the Altarian ships. The weapons were powerful enough to destroy planets. But when they hit the void entities, something impossible happened. The darkness absorbed the energy and grew brighter. "Impossible," Kolvex whispered. The void swarm moved closer. As they approached, the Altarian ship's power levels began to drop. The entities were feeding on the energy from the shields and weapons. "Admiral, our power systems are failing," his tactical officer reported. For the first time in his career, Admiral Kolvex felt fear. His energy weapons were useless. His shields were making the enemy stronger. Everything the Altarians had built, their military power on, was worse than useless against this enemy. "Retreat," he ordered, but it was too late. The void entities swarmed over his ships like hungry shadows. Within an hour, the entire fleet was gone. The Rigel system went dark. Fleet Admiral 1J Park watched the battle reports from Earth's orbital command center. The human military had been tracking the void swarm for 3 years. They knew exactly what had happened at Rigel. The Altarians tried to fight them with energy weapons, he said to his staff. "Just like we predicted they would." Commander Haijin Kong, his intelligence officer, nodded. "All the major powers are making the same mistake. They think more firepower will solve the problem." 1J had spent years studying the void entities. Human scientists had analyzed their behavior, their feeding patterns, their weaknesses. They had developed weapons specifically designed to fight enemies that consumed energy. "Sir," his communications officer announced, "we're receiving emergency transmissions from across the galaxy. The Council is calling for immediate military assistance." 1J looked at the messages flooding his screens. Desperate pleas from the same beings who had laughed at human warnings months earlier. "Any response, sir?" 1J was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "Send a standard diplomatic reply. The Terran Federation acknowledges your transmission. State your business in Terran space." "Sir?" "They wanted to handle the crisis without us. Let them try. On the planet Altaria Prime, emergency." Sessions were being called. Prime Minister Veltar stood before the Golden Assembly and tried to explain the impossible. "The humans were right," he said. The words felt like poison in his mouth. "The void swarm is not like other enemies. Our traditional weapons make them stronger." The assembly erupted in angry voices. Some members refused to believe it. Others blamed the humans for somehow causing the crisis. "We must contact the Terran Federation," Veltar continued. "We need their help." The words hung in the air like a confession of failure. Counselor Dextar stood up. He was old, even for an Altarian, and his golden skin had faded with age. "You want us to beg the humans for help? The same humans we dismissed as primitive?" "Yes," Veltar said simply. "Because the alternative is extinction." The debate raged for hours. Outside, reports continued to arrive. 3 more star systems had gone dark. The void swarm was accelerating their advance. Finally, the vote was called. By a narrow margin, the assembly agreed to send a delegation to Earth. As the session ended, Veltar remained in his seat. He thought about the human ambassador, Hyen Woo Kim, standing in the council chamber months ago. The human had tried to warn them. He had offered help, cooperation, shared knowledge, and they had laughed at him. Now their civilization was crumbling, and the only hope for survival lay with the primitive humans they had treated with such contempt. Meanwhile, on Earth, President Haijin Kang met with the Terran Senate. The chamber was smaller than the Galactic Council's Grand Hall, but the mood was very different. These were people who had learned to work together. The alien delegations will arrive within the week, she reported. They're offering everything they once refused to give us: full council membership, voting rights, exclusive trade deals. Senator Jinwoo Lim stood up. What do we tell them? President Kang looked around the chamber. These were the leaders of a species that had been dismissed and ignored for 30 years. But they had not given up. They had prepared for this day. We tell them the truth, she said. The time for negotiations is over. The galaxy needs leadership, not debate. And whether they like it or not, that leadership is going to come from U.S. Outside Earth's atmosphere, the first alien ships in months appeared at the edge of human space. They came not as conquerors or equals, but as supplicants. The universe was about to learn a new lesson about the species they had underestimated for so long. Ambassador Jinwoo Lim walked through the corridors of Luna Station, Earth's diplomatic fortress. The alien delegation followed behind him, their footsteps echoing in the metallic halls. These same beings had once looked down on humans as primitive newcomers. Now they walked with the careful steps of people who knew they were in a place of power that was not their own. The meeting room was simple compared to the grand chambers of the Galactic Council. Human furniture, human technology, human guards at every door. Chancellor Kekstar of the High Assembly looked uncomfortable in the smaller chair designed for human proportions. Thank you for agreeing to meet with us, Kekstar said. His voice was careful, polite, in a way it had never been before. Jinwoo sat across from him. State your business. The directness surprised the aliens. They were used to long diplomatic ceremonies and formal speeches. Humans, it seemed, preferred to get to the point. The galaxy faces a crisis, Kekstar continued. The Void Swarm has destroyed 47 star systems. Billions of beings are dead. Our military forces are scattered and demoralized. We know, Jinwoo said. We've been tracking their movements. Prime Minister Veltar leaned forward. His golden skin seemed duller than before, marked by stress and sleepless nights. We need your help. The Council is prepared to offer humanity full membership and equal voting rights. Jinwoo didn't react. Is that all? The aliens looked at each other. They had expected the humans to be grateful for such an offer. We can also provide exclusive trade agreements, added Councillor Thexmal. Access to rare minerals, advanced materials, knowledge from our archives. Interesting, Jinwoo said. He touched a control on the table, and the room's displays came to life. General Han, please join us. The door opened and General Sujin Han walked in. She was small compared to most of the aliens, but there was something about her presence that made them sit straighter. General Han is our military liaison, Jinwoo explained. She has some information you might find interesting. Sujin activated a holographic display. It showed star charts, battle reports, and tactical analyses. The alien delegates stared at data they had never seen before. For the past 3 years, while you ignored our warnings, we've been studying the Void Swarm, Sujin said. We know how they move, how they feed, how they reproduce. The hologram showed the swarm's advanced patterns in detail. Every attack, every consumed system, every tactical decision was mapped and analyzed. This is impossible, Chancellor Kekstar whispered. This level of analysis would require decades of study. It required 3 years of human scientists working around the clock, Sujin corrected. While you were holding debates, we were solving the problem. She changed the display to show weapon designs. Quantum disruption torpedoes that collapse their energy matrices. Null field generators that create zones they cannot enter. Kinetic weapons that bypass their energy absorption completely. Prime Minister Veltar stared at the weapon specifications. You've already developed countermeasures. You knew how to fight them all along. We offered to share this knowledge freely 3 years ago, Jinwoo said. His voice was calm, but there was steel beneath it. Ambassador Kim stood before the council and warned you. Your response was to laugh at our primitive fear. The room was quiet. The weight of their past arrogance hung heavy in the air. Dr. Sang-hoon Kim entered the room carrying a datapad. He was elderly, his hair gray, but his eyes were sharp with intelligence. Dr. Kim is our chief strategic advisor, Jinwoo explained. He has something to tell you. Sang-hoon looked at the alien delegates without warmth. The Void Swarm will reach the core worlds within 14 months. At their current expansion rate, galactic civilization will collapse completely within 18 months. He activated his datapad and new projections appeared on the displays. System after system turned red as the simulation played out the swarm's advance. However, Sang-hoon continued, with proper tactics and the right weapons, they can be stopped. The question is whether you're willing to pay the price for that knowledge. Chancellor Kekstar straightened in his chair. Despite everything, he still thought he could negotiate from a position of strength. What price do humans demand? Jinwoo smiled, but it was not a friendly expression. Complete dissolution of the current Galactic Council structure, the aliens gasped. Some started to stand up in anger. Establishment of a new Galactic Defense Alliance, Jinwoo continued, with humanity as the senior partner. Full access to all alien military assets and strategic resources. Non-negotiable command authority over all joint operations. This is outrageous, Veltar said. You're demanding surrender. We're offering leadership, General Han corrected. There's a difference. She activated another display showing human military preparations. Massive fleets, new ship designs, weapons that look like nothing the aliens had ever seen. While you've been debating, we've been building. Our fleets are already moving into position. Our weapons are being manufactured. Our strategies are ready to implement. Dr. Sang-hoon looked directly at Chancellor Kekstar. The Terran Federation doesn't need the Council's permission to act. We're going to fight the Void Swarm with or without you. The question is whether you want to be part of the solution or continue to be part of the problem. Counselor Thexmal stood up angrily. You cannot simply take control of the galaxy. The older races will not accept human dominance. The older races have had their chance, Jinwoo said quietly. You've had thousands of years to build a civilization that could protect itself. Instead, you became dependent on beings you considered inferior. He gestured to the displays showing system failures across the galaxy. Your power grids don't work without human optimization. Your medical systems can't function without human interfaces. Your trade networks have collapsed without human logistics support. The truth of his words was undeniable. The aliens sat in uncomfortable silence. This is not about dominance, General Han added. This is about competence. When the crisis came, you failed, we didn't. Prime Minister Veltar was quiet for a long time. Then he asked, if we agree to your terms, what guarantee do we have that humans will actually help? Jinwoo looked at him with something that might have been pity. After 30 years of faithful service to the Council, after decades of human scientists and soldiers dying for your worlds, you ask us for guarantees. He stood up and walked to the window that looked out at Earth below. Let me tell you something about humans, Veltar. We don't abandon our responsibilities, even when those responsibilities are forced on us by the failures of others. Ambassador Veltar felt something break inside him. For months, he had watched his civilization crumble. He had seen fleets destroyed, worlds consumed, billions of his people die. And through it all, he had known that the humans had tried to warn them. What you're asking for, he said slowly, it's complete surrender of sovereignty. No, Dr. Sang-hoon said. It's acceptance of reality. The galaxy needs to be led by beings who can actually lead. For too long, leadership has been based on age and tradition rather than competence and results. He showed them one final display. It was a projection of the galaxy 18 months in the future. One version showed continued Void Swarm expansion and total civilizational collapse. The other showed a coordinated defense led by human tactical doctrine. Choose, he said simply. The alien delegates looked at each other. Some were angry, others desperate. A few seemed almost relieved that someone was finally taking charge. Chancellor Kekstar was the first to speak. If we agree to these terms, how quickly can you begin operations against the swarm? Operations began 6 months ago, General Han said. We've been moving fleets into position and establishing defensive lines. We were just waiting for you to catch up. Prime Minister Valtar closed his eyes. When he opened them, something fundamental had changed. On behalf of the Altarian Confederacy, I accept your terms. One by one, the other delegates followed. Some did so with grace, others with barely contained rage. But all of them understood the same truth. The age of human patience was over. The age of human leadership had begun. As the aliens signed the documents that would reshape galactic civilization, Jinwoo thought about Ambassador Hyen Woo Kim's final words to the council months earlier. We thanked them for teaching us that we could only rely on ourselves, he remembered. Now they were about to learn the next lesson. When humans were finally given real authority, they used it well. 1 year later, Admiral Hyen Woo Kim stood on the bridge of the Geisa Retribution and watched the final battle begin. The man who had once been Earth's ignored ambassador was now supreme military, commander of the largest fleet in galactic history. The ship around him was unlike anything ever built before. Human engineering, alien materials, and the combined knowledge of 100 worlds had created a vessel that was both beautiful and terrible. But the real weapon wasn't the ship itself. It was the thousands of beings working together under human leadership. All fleets report ready, Admiral, announced Captain Dayan Yoon from the tactical station. She commanded the human fighter squadrons, but her pilots came from 20 different worlds. They had learned to fight the human way. Hyen Woo looked at the main display. The Magellan Void stretched before them, a dark region of space where no stars shone. Deep within that darkness, the Void Swarm had built their primary breeding nexus. This was where it would end. Commander SEO, are the null field generators in position? Tactical Coordinator Junho SEO nodded. He was young, barely 30, but his mind worked like a tactical computer. For months, he had studied swarm behavior patterns and found their weakness. Generators are positioned at coordinates alpha through Zeta, he reported. Energy dead zones will activate on your command. The genius of human strategy wasn't about having better weapons. It was about thinking differently. The alien races had spent thousands of years fighting wars with energy weapons and powerful shields. They thought in terms of raw power. Humans thought in terms of problems to solve. Dr. Rowe, status on the quantum disruption torpedoes? Dr. Young Soo-ro looked up from his science station. All weapons are armed and ready. The torpedoes will target the swarm's quantum matrices directly. They won't be able to absorb this energy. Around the Retribution, thousands of ships waited in perfect formation. Human vessels formed the core of the fleet, but Altarian cruisers, vegan destroyers, and Centaurian fighters filled the ranks. For the first time in galactic history, every major race was fighting as one unified force under human command. Admiral, the communications officer announced, we're receiving a transmission from the swarm nexus. Hyen Woo frowned. The void entities had never communicated before. Put it through. The voice that came through the speakers was like whispers in the dark, multiple voices speaking as one. Humans, we know you. You are different from the others. They feed us energy. You starve us. Why do you fight for them? Hyen Woo looked around his bridge at the mixed crew of humans and aliens working together. Commander Eugene Choi, the Altarian officer who had chosen loyalty over species, nodded at him encouragingly. Because they're part of our galaxy now, he said simply. And humans protect what's theirs. You cannot stop us. We have consumed 1,000 worlds. We will consume 1,000 more. Maybe, Hyen Woo admitted. But first you'll have to get through us. He cut the transmission and turned to his fleet commanders. All units, this is Admiral Kim. Today we finish what the galaxy started. Execute Attack Plan Omega. The battle began with silence. The null field generators activated first, creating zones of absolute energy void scattered throughout the swarm formation. The void entities, which lived by consuming energy, suddenly found themselves in regions where no energy existed at all. They panicked, For beings that had never known hunger, the sensation was terrifying. They rushed toward the fleet, desperate. To feed, only to encounter the second part of human strategy. Captain Di Yun led her fighter squadrons in the first wave. Her ships didn't use energy weapons. Instead, they fired solid projectile at incredible speeds. Kinetic weapons that the swarm couldn't absorb. Target their movement nodes, she ordered. Don't let them coordinate. The fighters danced through. Space like deadly ballet dancers, their human training showing in every maneuver. Behind them came the capital ships, firing quantum disruption torpedoes that tore holes in reality itself. But the real battle was happening in the mind of Junho. Seo, he watched the swarm's movements, predicting their patterns, staying always one step ahead. They're trying to flank us through Sector 7, he announced, moving reserve squadrons to intercept. They're adapting to the kinetic weapons, switching to scatter formation. The Nexus is trying to retreat. All units, focus fire on coordinates. 347 Mark 89. The swarm had never faced an enemy that could think tactically. They were used to consuming everything in their path through sheer, overwhelming force. But humans had spent 3 years learning to fight them specifically, every move the swarm made. The humans had already predicted the battle reached its climax. When the swarm Nexus itself emerged from the dark void. It was massive, a living shadow the size of a small moon, pulsing with the energy of 1,000 consumed worlds. All weapons, target the Nexus, Haiyan-Wu ordered. The combined fleet opened. Fire. Energy beams, kinetic projectiles, and quantum torpedoes all converged on the dark heart of the swarm, but the Nexus absorbed most of the energy. Attacks and grew larger. That's when Dr. Young-Soo played his final card. Admiral activating? The null field collapse. The generators positioned around the battlefield didn't just create energy-dead zones. They created a cascade effect that drained energy from everything nearby. The Nexus, which had grown fat on absorbed energy, suddenly found itself starving for the first time in its existence. The swarm felt fear, the final null field generator. Detonated directly inside the Nexus. The explosion wasn't fire or energy. It was the complete absence of energy. A hole in the universe itself. The swarm Nexus collapsed inward and disappeared across the battlefield. The remaining void entities simply ... stopped. Without their Nexus, they were just empty shadows drifting. In space ... the battle was over. On the bridge of the Retribution, the crew stood in stunned silence. Then, slowly, cheers began to rise from every station, every ship, every world. Admiral, Captain Yoon reported, all swarm entities have ceased activity. We're reading complete shutdown across all frequencies. Haiyan-Wu nodded. He felt tired, but satisfied. The threat that had terrified the galaxy was finally gone. Send a message to all allied worlds, he ordered. The Magellan Nexus has been destroyed. The Void Swarm is no more. 3 months later, President Min Ho-cha stood before the newly formed Galactic Defense Alliance Council. The chamber was smaller than the old council hall, but the mood was completely different. These beings worked together instead of just talking. The threat is ended, he announced. But we have learned important lessons. Unity is stronger than division. Cooperation is better than competition, and respect must be earned, not demanded. In the audience, former Prime Minister Veltar listened quietly. He had spent the past year learning to follow human leadership. It had been difficult for someone used to giving orders, but he had to admit the results spoke for themselves. The galaxy was safer, more efficient, and more unified than it had ever been. After the session, he approached President Cha privately. I need to ask you something, Veltar said. When we dismissed you, ignored you, treated you badly, why did you help us anyway? Minho looked at him thoughtfully. Because that's what good leaders do. They help people even when those people don't deserve it. He paused, but they also make sure it never happens again. Years passed. Children across the galaxy learned a new history in their schools. They learned about the day humans left the Galactic Council. They learned about the crisis that followed. They learned about the final battle against the Void Swarm, But most importantly, they learned about the price of arrogance and the value of respect. Ambassador Sora Kim, Hying-Woo's daughter, now served as Earth's representative to the new alliance. She often received visitors from alien worlds, all wanting to join humanity's growing coalition. She would always tell them the same thing: "We welcome all beings who come in peace and equality. But remember, respect is earned, not given." In the depths of space, human exploration ships continued their work, pushing further into the unknown. Their hulls carried a simple message in 100 different languages: Terra Invicta, Earth unconquered. The galaxy had learned many things the day humans left the Council. But the most important lesson was this: when you push away those who offer help, you don't just lose their assistance, you learn what it means to need them. And sometimes, if you're very lucky, they help you anyway, but they never forget.